Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Bricks King podcast, where I'm going to bend your ear about Lego, review those amazing bricks of plastic, and discuss what is new and up and coming around the Lego world. I'm your minifigure host, Matt. Let's build on it. Welcome in, everybody. How are we doing today? Hope everybody is doing quite well. Happy day. Happy whatever. Something. It's too stinking hot. So anything better than being outside in darn 100-degree heat is happy. So today I've got another interview with you, not with you, with this guy, for you, from me, and him, for you. There. Now we're done with all the silliness, right? So let's go ahead and dive into this interview. This is so much fun. I had so much fun talking to Steven about this. Just wait. Just wait until you hear about it. And if you had an opportunity to see it at Brick World Chicago, holy dear God. All right, guys. Today is day 2, I guess, if you want to call it officially anything. I guess it's like more like day 27, it feels like, for some people that have been here. So I'm joined by Steven, and Steven got nominated for, was it Best Life Size? Mm-hmm. And come decked out in your Ghostbusters getty-up today, and
Yep.
You built this incredible Proton pack. So, I mean, I got to hear about it. I mean, I've been a Ghostbusters fan since, the real Ghostbusters days, early on. And so I got to know where did the inspiration come from? Obviously, Ghostbusters fan, but that's a lot of brick. There's a lot to it. So tell me a little bit about it, man.
Well, thanks for inviting me to the podcast.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where I wanted to start the costuming first. I got to various conventions. I used to live in Tennessee, and we had a convention called GMX down there. And I ran into the costuming group, the Tennessee Ghostbusters. Uh-huh. And I got to know those guys really well. And from there, relationships started developing. And you get the ideas of, getting the flight suit and building a pack and so forth. And that kind of started the ball rolling. I didn't have all those pieces in place.
Yeah, of course.
And I actually came up to Wisconsin the year after that because of school. And then I found another group, the Wisconsin Ghostbusters, and they were doing the same thing. So, and that's the thing. You can go to any state, you can go to any major city, and there's usually some franchise.
There's a group there.
There's a group of fans who get flight suits together and build proton packs and other, weapons or guns, from the franchise. Some have slime blowers, some of them have ghost traps, and everybody has their thing, right? Some of them just do the other characters. And then they all do events. Some will do things for charity, will do parades, and it's just a grand old time. And I just, I want to be a part of that because the first film that I saw as a kid in 1989 was Ghostbusters 2.
Okay.
And I remember because I had the coloring book, and I know that that was my first coloring book because I could not color within the lines. I was crossing the streams, literally, with my coloring pencil, my crayons. Yeah,
No. Yeah.
And I know that there's no other film I can remember before that point. So that's kind of like when it started. And then, as you're growing up as an adult, you don't think about those things. But you get money, you get a job, you have a way to pay for these things now. It's like, oh, I can actually buy these things or I can build these things.
Get all the goodies.
And then you get connected and you find the people that are like-minded and you guys have a singular goal, and it's to do this kind of stuff. So that was the costuming aspect of it that I started with. And then I don't know what happened at some point, which came first, but I said, okay, I want to try to do a Lego version of this. And I had enough black brick from the brick that I brought up to Wisconsin. And I just started buying more from eBay initially because I didn't know about BrickLink.
Yeah.
I was paying eBay prices.
Of course.
But I was getting random black brick. I wasn't even looking for anything in particular. I was just seeing what was there. And I did a crude mock-up of a couple of pieces. The first thing I actually built was the Cyclotron. So the people don't know, the Cyclotron is the circular thing with the little red eyelets on the front. And that's where, in universe, the energy particles would be spinning up. And they would spin up really fast inside that component where they shot out the gun to ensnare the ghosts. So that was the first iconic thing that I had developed. And I more or less have not changed it since then. And that was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So I've been working on this thing for 10 years, just slowly buying brick, left and right, and eventually I discovered Bricklink. Bricklink was really good for finding a lot of those 4x4 round bricks that I used in the loom that connects it to the Proton.
Sure.
The Neutrino wand. It has multiple names for that gun. But once I developed a relationship with that website, then I was able to just single out what I needed.
Right.
And from there, then I got into a lug here in Wisconsin. I had a reason to complete it. I had a place to display it. And, now here I am at Brick World.
And people to ogle over it. Like, oh, my God, look at it.
I mean, I've had some really interesting responses. And even, like, the small kids, I wouldn't expect to know what Ghostbusters is because the film came out 38 years ago.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, my God, it's back to Ghostbusters. It's like... it's some other guy, and the one kid in particular was like, had his hands on his head, and he was like looking between the two, because I put the one that I wear on display next to the one I built in Lego. They couldn't tell them apart.
Okay.
And a lot of people are telling me, like, I couldn't tell that one was Lego until I looked at it again. I had like a double take. So I guess I did something right.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. It's massive. Question.
Yeah.
Do you wear it? I know it has straps on it. Do you wear it?
It can't be worn. I don't dare try to put it on. I don't dare try to angle it more than 15 degrees.
Okay.
Everything is gravity that's holding it down right now. It's at a slight angle because the way the Alice frame that it's sitting on, because it is mounted to the Alice frame. There's a part where it widens, and that would be going up against, the kidney pack, so it would be going up the back, your back there where your kidneys are. So those areas are a little bit thicker. And then as it goes up towards the top of your back, it gets shorter. So then it has a tendency to lean when you put it flat on the ground. But I just left it like that because that's what my other pack is doing too. And so they're in the same orientation. And you can then compare them, like that. At some point in the future, if I do find a way to lock it down, I'm going to try to put everything onto a Lazy Susan.
Okay.
Have a platform that's big enough. It might have to be like 3 feet across or something like that. And then angle it in such a way that people can see the face in the correct orientation instead of the way it's sitting now.
I gotcha.
But again, I have to make sure everything is mounted in place and
Glue?
really secure. No, we're not cradling anything here. No, rule 1, no cradle.
Hey, I get it.
It's not a Lego part.
It's not a Lego part, yeah.
If I had to be purist about it, that's a good reason for it. But yeah, so I want to have it on display in such a way that people can see it facing on. I can also then rotate it on the Lazy Susan, and that would include the gun and the loom, and everything would be on that platform.
So you get the full experience to 360 it kind of thing.
Yeah, and then after World of Lights, realizing that I'm in the dark, and there's no excuse for me to not light this thing up. So I got to figure out some LED situation with that, and then have my other one charged and ready to go next year, so they'll both be activated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to find a way. There's a lot of cool light vendors here. Cut a deal, man.
It wasn't the thing I was thinking about.
No, of course.
I was still working on it last minute.
I mean, how often? I shouldn't say how often, but most of the time you don't come across things that are all lit up. I mean, there's a number of models here, but in most shows you don't see blinking, twinkling lights and stuff like that. But then, like you said, when they turn the lights out and they do you're like, wow.
Right. Starts to, separate the kids from the master builders, right? It's like, this is now the thing. And it's so accessible now because we do have vendors that are just selling lights.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, I could go up and grab one. Also, a guy just walked by there. He showed me a whole bunch of his light boxes and all of his little LEDs. And he told me, it was like, here you want to use the shrink wrap. You want to do this, get your soldering gun, do it yourself, and it's a little bit cheaper. So I'd have to train myself, to do electronics again.
YouTube.
I had an engineering class back in high school where we talked about Ohm's law, and so I faintly remember things about resistors.
Yeah.
But I had some help on the electronic components on my other packs, so I'm just not, it's not my forte.
Right.
Eventually, it's something that I want to be able to relearn myself, so I can feel confident in it. I don't want to create a short circuit.
No, of course not. You don't want
that would be bad.
You don't want a meltdown on your proton pack. All the plastic
either. Me gone. Yeah.
So you got a few other things over there, Ghostbuster related. You've got the small Ecto 1 that's over there.
Yeah, the set that they released in 2014.
I mean, is that just kind of to company to?
Oh, it's flavor.
Okay.
Because I did a custom graveyard build. I'm just experimenting with that now because I actually have a plan to do a much larger graveyard.
Okay.
and I'm actually doing a genealogical research on a graveyard in Wisconsin. So I was hoping to potentially replicate it to help my research. Not identifiable information on there.
Right,
you know,
sure.
But I would at least be identifying the
pseudonyms
shapes of
or
the
something like that.
Shapes of the stones. Most of these are my dead ancestors anyway.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of a weird parallel into that. It's like I'm just fascinated with like the dark and morbid, and this just plays right into that. So I freed the Ghostbuster car in there. They're visiting the cemetery, and then there's like a little Beetlejuice popping out of one of the graves.
See, that's perfect though.
So it's just a fun little element because the kids love the minifigures.
Yeah.
You know, they might not understand what they're looking at for the big full scale stuff.
Sure.
But they'll see something else that's interesting as well.
Yeah, and that's really what they're focused on.
Right.
They see the Proton Pack, and some kids are getting it, and the others are like, "Oh, look!" Well, I don't know if they even know who Beetlejuice is.
Yeah, and that Lego Dimension series was great for all those alternative IPs that they acquired.
Yeah,
you know, and Beetlejuice was one of those, so I had to pick up one of those guys.
Of course.
And also on display is a micro version of that Proton Pack. It acted sort of as a mock-up in the process of building the big one.
Before you spend all the money.
Well, right. I mean, I wanted to make sure I had the idea down, and so it's like, it's a prototype before you get into the big project, right?
Yeah, but that's awesome. I mean, Lego has prototypes of their pieces and sets and stuff like that ahead of time before they have a final version. I mean, that's essentially what you have. Mm-hmm. It's cool. It's nice for, somebody gets in a conversation with you and say, hey, this is where I started. This was my prototype or whatever before I went full scale here.
Yeah.
It's a cool little story.
I think I did actually do that full scale component first, like I said, with the Cyclotron, the circular part in the front, and then decided like, oh, hey, let me see if I can do it in this version. And it's easier to display that. Initially, when I brought it to some events in Wisconsin, it wasn't on the Alice frame, the big one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It was in two components. It was the Cyclotron component, and it was like the other boxy components on the upper part of it. And I just sort of fit them together, and that was going to sit on a table. And, it was great at that moment, but it didn't have the versatility of being picked up and transported easily.
Yeah.
You had to pick the whole thing up. It was really heavy, and then you had to cart it over to a rolly cart and do it that way. And now I can just grab it by the arms, the bars that are on the frame itself,
and just
lift
it
straight up, put it in my back seat of my car, and I'm gone.
You're gone. Okay.
It is so transportable.
Much easier now.
yeah, just like the other one. But the other one I'll throw on my back.
Okay.
Because then I can actually strap that one on in flight suit mode today. That'll be cool. Maybe, I'll probably keep this flight suit on during the
I was gonna say,
final awards ceremony.
It's going to be cold enough in here. You might as well.
Yeah, it's a little. Yeah, it's cooler outside today than it was earlier last week.
Yeah.
It was completely murder on Wednesday when I loaded in. It was 97 degrees outside and like almost 100% humidity.
Texans be laughing.
I changed out like 3 shirts that day. It was that hot.
Yeah, it was pretty.
And I'm from Tennessee.
I didn't expect that coming up here, honestly.
It's like, what is going on? It's not even summer. It's still technically spring for like another half a week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, aside from that, we heard a little bit about your Ghostbusters journey and stuff, and obviously, but where'd the Lego journey start for you?
Day one, really. Just, you can't really pin down exactly when it happened, but I know that one of my first sets was like the Forestman set.
Okay.
So there was some castle stuff in there.
Yeah.
Some was M-Tron, I think.
Oh yeah, M-Tron. We got Blacktron. We got all the Trons.
So some of those classic sets from like 1987, 1988 were probably my first sets.
Fantastic.
Also, I really have a fondness for the Time Cruisers theme.
Yeah, okay.
The whole mashup that happened in 95.
Yeah, that's a good.
Timmy and Professor.
I don't know, but you usually don't hear that. You usually don't hear people come up or hear people say, "Hey, Time Cruisers was my thing."
Yeah, and it's actually kind of funny because it reminds me of like that great race with the cars.
Okay.
And the bad guys remind you of like Professor Fate, played by Jack Lemmon, and that's a wonderful role that man did in that film. And I feel like they were trying to replicate that a little bit with the figures, kind of give them that dark idea because they had that train with the face on it, and they had all the bats and everything moving around as you move the train.
Yeah.
And that was like something that my grandma picked up for me, because we were on a vacation. She's like, what would you like? It's like, I really like this train. and so that like stuck with me or it actually might have been the one she got me might have been the Time Cruiser flying vehicle itself.
I was thinking the flying vehicle.
Right,
I remember that one vividly.
I got them both. Yeah, I certainly got both sides. And they're still floating above on like some contraption I made.
Yeah.
I made like some carnival ride, and I just got them all, dancing on the thing over in my apartment. So
starting to get
some
busy.
People rolling in.
I
now.
know. A lot of chaos
Starting
about
to see
to
some
happen.
of my people. But yeah. So like some of those early sets, they all got broken down into my bulk brick.
Okay.
So they're all sorted now. I got a bunch of tackle boxes. Half of my collection's probably here in the room.
Okay.
Just because I transported it all so I could make sure I had what I needed.
Yeah, of course.
And
you always need extra pieces.
Yeah.
You always have one that goes missing. And you're like,
and I still
need
bought
replacement.
more. There's a vendor here that had a Pab Cup for like $8.
Yeah.
That's great. It's like half what you get at the Lego store.
Absolutely.
So I totally went ham on that. Found a whole bunch of parts and pieces I actually needed for my skyscraper build.
Okay.
I was looking for those little cheese wedges, but they were the transparent blue ones. And I was like short. Actually, they actually had those at Pick a Brick Wall at Lego store. So I did get all of those from Lego store.
Okay.
But there was a lot of other pieces that I actually found, in those other things here at vendors at the convention. Either way, I still found some really good brick. I'm going to have a bunch of sort lug happening when I get home. It's going to be chaos.
That's the best part, right?
It's probably going to wait a couple of days. I don't want to look at another Lego brick after I
I don't blame
after
you.
I unload everything back into
I don't blame you one
when I go
bit.
back home. Just want to crash.
Yeah.
Go back to my boring day job. But this allows me to get away from that monotony of my life.
That's awesome.
It feels really special here, especially with the extra days for us.
Yeah.
That we can interact with even the Lego Master people.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
they're regular people.
They are regular people, and that's something that I talked about.
They're you and me and everybody else.
Yeah, I talked about that with somebody else. It's one of those things where they're just people, and they don't want to have the media circus and stuff like that. They'll interact with kids and people that are coming into the show, but the rest here, we're not ogling over them like, oh my God, it's the Lego Masters, Caleb and Jacob.
I was maybe last year.
Okay.
As an attendee before I actually joined my lug.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like walking up to them and be like, oh, look, they're real people. It's just like, to myself, I'm like joking, I know that they're real people, and I'm just being weirdly facetious about it. It is just, I'm a goofball when it comes to famous people and whatever fame is. But that's just because that's what television does. It puts people up on a pedestal.
Yeah, I would agree.
But the important thing is that I'm getting to be able to talk to them. I'm having real conversations.
Okay.
I'm like even walking into some season 3 people here that not many people know, so they can fly under the radar right now. But we have like honest, great conversations about things that are not Lego too. Like we could just talk about the other things that interest us.
Yeah.
And
which is important. You
we
need that.
because we don't need to just focus on the Lego. Obviously, that's why we're here.
Right.
But I want to have conversations with people, for whatever else that they're interested in. Like I said, I talked to Monica. I never met her before, but now we're almost like, our best friends out of this convention. and we had like a big genealogy talk that we went into.
Yeah.
Because she's into that kind of stuff
Yeah.
too.
See, you've got some parallels and stuff like that.
Right. It's just whatever kind of nerdy things I'm into. Like I'm a big Star Wars fan. I have lots of hats that I wear. So depending on what event I'm at, I'll be doing some other thing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any other shows that you're planning on attending later this year?
I was looking at trying to do Train Fest in Milwaukee, where I can take some of those other builds that I have with the minifigures and then be able to do the modules, get the train tracks on there.
Yeah.
And be a part of that because I like trains too, and it's a local show for us.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what other smaller shows they have, but pretty much this is like the biggest show I'm going to be doing. And then I'm already planning on coming back next year.
Yeah, so am I.
I mean,
it's going to be bigger and better, I think, even next year. Everybody came
right.
out of the woodwork this year. They're jonesing and they're ready to go.
I mean, we're crawling out of this pandemic slowly but surely. I'm still being responsible, wearing my mask, keeping my distance and stuff because, we'll just see what happens afterwards. I know Star Wars Celebration was like, kind of a spike or whatever. But I still appreciate that we do have the ability to get together, that we're in a large enough space that we can display our stuff and still feel like it's a safe environment and everything. And we did need to have like a physical event, after so long.
Oh my goodness!
3 years is like a millennium, like an eternity for Lego builders because they have all these things that they're working on, but they have no way to display them.
Yep.
So this is certainly
Absolutely.
gratifying for a lot of us. my nomination certainly gratified. I didn't even expect to be nominated whatsoever because this is my first one. And I look at these other things, and I'm just like, we're not worthy. I'm doing the Wayne and Garf here on the floor.
But I think that's the way that a lot of builders are. They don't expect, like, I should totally be nominated. And when it happens, they're just kind of awestruck, taken aback. Like, I'm worthy? No, surely there must be a mistake.
Of course. And I've been told that even just being nominated is like a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
So, I mean, I've already seen a little 1x1 brick dropped off at my table now. And, the awards are tonight. Maybe it gets upgraded to 2x1, but if it doesn't, at least I still got nommed, and that's pretty cool.
I mean, there's over 600 registered people for the show, and some people brought one build, some people brought 10, 20.
Right.
So,
right. Going up against all of the builds that they put out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just...
fantastic.
But the important thing for me was that, I've reached fruition. I've taken so long to build it. Like I said, it was a 10-year build. That's like a quarter of my life that I put into it. It sounds like there's an announcement happening.
They need help at the Play Brick. Somebody go help.
Sometimes you can't even hear it. It's so muffled.
It is totally muffled.
Like I completely
can't ever tell.
I missed the photo because I couldn't tell that there was an announcement for a photo. And then I saw the flash and I'm like, wait.
You're like, what is going on?
It's like
here?
a half a mile on the other side of the convention center. Yeah. Maybe I'm in the background somewhere. I tried to hold my hands up at my booth.
Hey, you see me out there?
I'll be looking for the high-res version of that photo now.
Well, Steven, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your build and stuff like that. And it was really cool to chat. I don't come across a lot of Ghostbuster stuff at shows often. Sometimes it's like Fabuland. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't.
I mean, there's like 3 firehouses in this.
And usually,
The Ghostbuster minifigures appear in different spots and stuff. And so I know that IP is out there and they're going to show up. But as far as I'm aware, the pack was something that hasn't been completed, and I just want to make sure it was,
it's
there
incredible
and accessible, and now here it is.
Well, again, thank you for coming on, and I can't wait to see you next year. Hopefully, you're back at Brick World Chicago, and
I look forward
one
to
day
it.
I'll make my way up to the smaller shows, but up till the shows up in Wisconsin and Minnesota and stuff like that, because I need to see that part of the world.
Yeah, we still have a Brick World Milwaukee.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, that's the only other major brick show that we have outside of like small library events or so forth. But certainly, you're welcome to come up there, and we'll say hey again.
Absolutely.
And we'll treat you to some brats and some cheese.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, with that, guys, we're going to sign off for this one, and stay tuned for the next interview coming up here shortly. Well, guys, that is the interview there with Steven. Good stuff all around. Really, really interesting, his Ghostbuster Proton pack. It's just absolutely fantastic. It's so incredible. Large. Just if you have an opportunity to catch him at any other show, mainly Brick World, hopefully again next year, you need to do yourself a favor, especially if you're a Ghostbusters fan. But even if you are just somebody that enjoys unique creations, this isn't a building. This is entirely different. But with that in mind, I will see you guys on the next one. And until we meet again, I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's build on it.